Hello, my name is Chris Snipes, and you are listening to The Melt. Today's guest on The Melt is Laurence Galian. He is a Sufi, a third-degree Master Mason, a Wiccan Priest, and a classical composer and pianist. So far, he's written 4 books. One for New Falcon back in the 90s called Beyond Duality, one about Sufism, one about Aleister Crowley, and the latest one, Alien Parasites, was originally written in Spanish and has just been translated into English, and we'll be talking more about that in the next conversation that we have. But this conversation that you're about ready to hear has more to do with Laurence's life up until now, to sort of introduce him to you first before we delve into deeper and bigger waters. He's experienced a lot and has many stories. I first heard him on Aeon Byte, and I immediately liked the cut of his jib. So I was excited when he agreed to be on my little fledgling podcast. I start off the conversation asking him about his childhood.
Well, in a lot of ways, it sucked. I was given up for adoption by my biological mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't one of those cases of a 15-year-old girl that got pregnant and needed to give the baby away. She was 26 years old with a good job, a boyfriend that had a job in television,
Mm-hmm.
when television was just starting out at the time, in an advertising agency. So they didn't lack for money, but my mother was a singer, an opera singer, a dancer, actress, and I believe her career came first. Also, interestingly, she was Roman Catholic Italian. Her mother was from Italy, and I suspect strongly that the father was mafia because of the nature of the business.
Yes.
And she said to me once that my father would have killed your father if he knew that I was pregnant. So she hid the entire pregnancy from her father. Only her mother and her sister knew about it. My birth father several times proposed, but well, it's a long story, but she said no.
Mm-hmm.
And I was put up for adoption. And I grew up on Long Island, New York, in the suburbs, in a Levitt house, typical suburbia of the 1950s. And but while my parents took excellent care of me physically, etc., they were very, very strict Catholics, extremely strict Catholics. And very, very early on in life, I got this idea in my head that if I was a disobedient, bad boy, I would be sent back to the orphanage. So I better be a damn good boy. And even one day, I heard them talking. I was 6 years old. They were talking about the orphanage, and I think sending me back to the orphanage. And
You overheard this?
yes,
Oh,
yes. As
wow.
I was not sneaking down the stairs, but I heard them speaking in the morning,
Mhm.
and so I decided to listen. So I went into the kitchen and I slammed my little fist against the wall, and I said, "Damn it! Stop talking about me." And my father grabbed me, lifted me off the floor, dragged me into the bathroom, washed my mouth out with soap, gave me a whooping like you wouldn't believe. And at that moment, I said to myself, okay, this is it. You are going to be perfect from now on. And so I developed, I don't want to say two personalities, but to, I learned two personas, let's say. I learned the persona of how to be with my parents and my own internal world.
Yeah.
And thank God for books, for movies, music. What am I forgetting? But through books, I was able to see that there was people who thought differently
Hmm.
than my parents,
Sure.
and through good movies, and um, and music helped to open up my heart and my emotions, to really feel love, to know, because my parents were very very unemotional, uh, no, not affectionate. I never saw them once holding hands,
Hmm.
never once. Um, just a peck on the cheek before my father went to work every night. Um, so it was really through the arts that I began to come alive. And then when I was 17, I was friends with a guy from Haiti who sat behind me in homeroom, and he said to me, "Do you want to come to this cool place that I go to? It's in town. It's not far away." And I said, "Well, what do you do?" And he says, "Well, we have these rap groups." And I said, "Well, okay, what is a rap group?" Well, he says, we just talk about our lives." And I said, "Okay, I'll go." So I went, and oh man, I sucked it up like I don't know, the desert sands or something, because here were other people, cool guys and cool girls, who were talking about the same types of problems that I was enduring.
Hmm.
And I learned for the first time in my life that I was not alone, that I had been carrying this weight on my shoulders for so many years.
Yeah.
And so that really opened up my mind to the benefits of various forms of therapy. And uh, uh, yeah, uh, I have basically been in and out of therapy for about 30 years,
Hmm.
35 years, with various therapists, various types of therapy.
What were you working with in the therapy? I mean, what was it that what walls were you coming up against that you felt like you needed help with?
Oh, well, that's a profound question. Let's start simply, just making eye contact. I couldn't make eye contact at 17 when I spoke to someone. And uh, uh, before that, uh, I rarely spoke.
Hmm.
If I was with a group of well, uh, just a group of people, especially slightly older than me, I never said a word.
Hmm.
So beginning to articulate and communicate and uh, see, make contact with other human beings, that was scary for me. And then just a mountain of rage. One day, at the same time, same group, 17, 18 years old, the leader of the group, she said, Laurence, pretend that this couch is your parents. And what do you want to do to the couch? And the next thing I knew, I had completely beaten the shit out of that couch. All my knuckles were bleeding, and but I felt just such release and relief. So there was just an enormous amount of rage because I could not express myself for 18 years, 17 years of my life.
Was that because of your home environment, because of your adoptive parents?
Yeah, I learned, that the slightest frown, the slightest, body language would be picked up. It's very interesting. I believe my mother was a genius. Seriously, her whole family are or were extremely successful people.
Your biological mother?
Oh no.
Okay, you're adopted. Okay,
adopted mother. Yes.
Gotcha.
But she was so she was very, very perceptive. She was also, interestingly enough, a pianist and a singer, very talented, extremely talented. But she told me that she played in a bar once, and she didn't like the fact that the guys were hitting on her in the bar. She was good looking. She was a model, so she stopped that. But she was very jealous of my piano playing when she saw that I had talent. But I don't know why she never practiced. So I also kind of learned from her was a self-sabotage. That has been the bane of my life. And
I relate.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. It's that phrase, could if you could do it all over, would you? And I think I would say yes, I would do it all over again, because there were various times in my life when I had opportunities that I turned down, that I didn't show up for, and also like a string of women, of girlfriends, and well, I like to be transparent. 3 marriages, and finally, at around age 60, I find the love of my life, this wonderful woman that I've been looking for all my life, and she was ready to leave the man she was with for many years. She was sick of him. He was physically abusive, psychologically abusive, and abusive to their daughter. And I actually saw sexual abuse. Yeah. So I didn't have much distress robbing her away from. It was very mutual. I definitely did not attempt to steal her. Put it that way.
Sure.
I am a gentleman. So
she ran to you.
It's something like that.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Thank you.
So when you were experiencing all of this rage, was at that time, did you know that you were adopted?
Yes, it's interesting. They told me probably before I could even speak that I was adopted, and they told me when I could understand conversation that they had to go through a whole process with a social worker. Um, and the social worker told them, tell him immediately, over and over again, not ad nauseum, but that you are adopted,
Mhm.
so that there is never a moment of shock of like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like people are informed when they're 18 or
Yeah.
just they discover
Exactly.
paperwork or something. But I really I wanted to meet my biological parents very much. People do not understand adoption. They really don't understand it. It's when you look into the mirror every day and you see a face that does not look at all like your father or your mother, there's something in your brain that says this does not compute. Um, uh, my skin was darker, um, and my father was. His mother came from Ireland. His father came. The mother came. The mother came from Ireland. The father came from Italy. So he had the white Irish skin. So
Hmm.
he was very white. He was taller than me, and also I had another adopted brother 2 years younger who also looked completely different than me. Um, and then when my mother was 41, she got pregnant, my, my adopted mother.
Wow.
And then all hell broke loose. Everything changed. So, but that's a whole other story. I, I don't know. I'm getting a little embarrassed. I'm talking so much about
Sure. Well, we can.
personal things.
Yeah. We can move on to broader subjects if you want to. What was it that led you uh, from that context to want to explore or expand your mental or physical even universe? What made you start looking into different religions and practices and psychedelics and stuff like that?
Well, I would say Rudolf Steiner. Um, we had something called the bookmobile that it was like a bus filled with books that came from the public library and parked behind our house every week. And I I saw a book one day. I think it was The Philosophy of Freedom, and I don't know why I chose that book. I was very much into science fiction at first. Um, And yeah, as a kid, I loved monster movies.
Oh yeah.
Uh, oh, and they would scare the shit out of me, especially was Invaders from Mars. Boy, I had nightmares about that one. Um, but I would.
It was the Exorcist for me. But
Okay,
sorry to interrupt.
we
Yes.
each have our. Uh, well, man, it was. So I love science fiction, but I read this Steiner book and I was so freaking impressed that he proved to me the existence of the spiritual world in that book. He proved to me. I was like, this is impressive. This is different. This is not just open your Bible and let's pray to Jesus and let's pretend that Jesus is there. I want to say that I've always felt a great love for God, and I also felt a great something coming to me from the divine or whatever.
Hmm.
But um, but there was never any like proof being offered like this is the body, this is the blood. Okay, well it's bread, it's wine, but it's the body and blood, so okay. But Steiner, working with the mind, with thought, in the spirit worlds. So I went on a Steiner kick. and at that time, my life blossomed, partly because of the rap group, the psychological opening,
Mm-hmm.
um, and partly due, I believe that people definitely come into our lives for a definite reason.
For sure.
This is no accident.
Mm-hmm.
This man from Haiti, a black man sitting behind me, who spoke French, um, he he then invited me. He said, uh, well, everyone knew me as Larry at that time. Larry, let's. There's a great movie theater in New York City. I want to take you to see it. They play these old foreign movies. I said, okay, let's go. So we went to see an Ingmar Bergman film.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I was addicted to Ingmar Bergman.
Oh, yes.
Cool.
Yeah, I had an Ingmar Bergman streak myself. My God, great stuff.
Yes, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah.
And it was fascinating. Well, I want to pat myself on the shoulder because I was somehow able to mix real devotional. By that time, I was like a Pentecostal Catholic. At the same time, watching Ingmar Bergman, that was, I guess, an atheist,
Mm-hmm.
and saying the most horrible things about religion. And uh, At that time, I also discovered the music of Richard Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an absolute nut for his music. Uh, and So all these aspects opened up in my life. I tried out for a play in school, a drama play, and it was Saint Joan of Arc by uh, George Bernard Shaw, and I was the Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm.
And the Monsignor of the local Catholic Church came, and he said to the director, when I saw him on stage, I swore I was seeing Jesus Christ. So I had that down pretty well. I,
That's a great review.
yeah, it's not bad, huh? But at the same time, I'm talking to my girlfriends and telling them that just my own version of theology, and uh, I forget right now my rap that I used to say, but basically to tell them that sex is okay, and
you
and go ahead, go
you found a loophole. It's all right. It's acceptable.
ahead. Yeah, yes. Well, part of me would very much like to be a lawyer. Uh, I used to watch court TV, like people watch, what do they binge watch series now?
Mhm.
Uh, I watched the whole OJ trial. I watched uh, the Phil Spector trial. I find lawyers absolutely fascinating.
Interesting.
Um, yes, but I also, lawyers I hate and love, and also journalists. I thought very seriously about becoming a journalist, but they're too damn cynical, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they look for the fly in the ointment. And I detest that.
Yeah.
I detest cynicism.
Hmm. Me
Um,
too. It's too easy. It's boring. It's a cop out.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, because we all have feet of clay, right?
Yes.
I um, It took me a while to realize this because I really wanted to. Well, I don't know. Adore might not be the right word, but uh, look up to certain heroes. I wanted people to be perfect. I expected Steiner to be perfect. I
Hmm.
expected Wagner to be perfect. You name him, the person. Um, and as soon as I found out that they were human, I just freaked out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Huh. It,
Uh,
it
Go
took
ahead.
them down a notch for you, or that something
Yeah.
was vulgar about that almost?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh, it was uh, it was distasteful. I see, like I love consistency,
Mhm.
um, and um, and because of my, I guess, superhuman will that I developed to be like the perfect child,
Mhm.
I thought, well, anybody can learn that. I mean, I learned how never to say a swear word in the house, um, never to put a frown on my face.
Mhm.
Um, so, uh, how can someone be anti Semitic, or how can whatever flaw a person might have?
Sure.
So, it took me decades, really, really decades to accept that there is no one without feet of clay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there are fucked up people in the world. That's different.
Sure.
But the like I'm trying to think of an example. Uh, there was. Are you familiar with Gangaji, the Neo Advaita
Yeah, I
teacher?
don't know much about them or him, but
Yeah, oh, it's a woman. It's a
oh,
woman.
that shows you how little I know about.
No, that's well, because there's a Muji now, and he's a man,
Uh-huh.
so they all have these G's at the end of their name.
Okay.
So don't worry about that. But but yeah, she and her husband had problems. This was after I learned to accept uh, that people have feet of clay,
Mhm.
but uh, their students went absolutely loco when they discovered that they were splitting up. That excuse me, her that she and her husband were splitting up because they had idolized them. They had put them on pedestals, and I think that's the phrase that I put people on pedestals,
Mhm.
and people walk on the earth. They don't walk on
Sure.
pedestals. um, and we just got to do the best we can. And more, I think about how I need to have compassion for everybody
Absolutely.
because everybody is like in pain in one way or another.
Mm.
And frequently it's just as severe and intense as the pain inside me at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
uh,
even the most flawed and dastardly of humans, they almost need it more than anybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I mean, I uh, I think about Nietzsche, and for a long time, I didn't pick up a book by him because everybody said, "Well, he said God is dead."
Mhm.
So, okay, end of story. But then when I began to read him, I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." Then I discovered that he was like best buddies with Wagner for a long time. They were, they just hung out together. Um, and so but yeah, Wagner had the first thing I discovered about Wagner is that he never paid his debts. He borrowed and borrowed from friends. He never paid them back. And so I thought, oh, gee, this is horrid. Um, And then the question arose, how can a person with such flaws create such beautiful music? You know?
There might be an absolute direct connection between those two things.
Tell me more.
Well, I think that there's an ongoing theme with artists and any kind of art, whether that be somebody who's an author, somebody who's a painter, somebody who's a musician, that the reason that they're drawn to express these things is because they're broken in some way, or they're so hypersensitive to their surroundings and because of that hypersensitivity, they feel sort of on the outside of things because those around them don't share that same sensitivity. So then they start to sort of extract themselves from the masses, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't work, I think. So as they remove themselves from the group that they don't feel a part of, then they can observe it from a distance. And sometimes that loneliness that isolation from that feeling on the outside of things can eat you up. Like, people need people. And if you're left to your own devices, sometimes it can get self-destructive, or paranoid, or, lots of different things.
Oh, absolutely. And I was, I can't say pleased, maybe relieved is a better word, to discover that very recent research into Wagner has revealed that he suffered from severe depression. And I've suffered from severe depression most of my life.
Yeah.
And I've had to battle that. And so I thought, that is remarkable. And of course, Beethoven, his depression and what is the word, solitude, like you're talking about, moving himself from everyone.
Isolation. Yeah.
Isolation, was extreme. I don't think I should say his name, but I had the pleasure of knowing a famous jazz musician, super famous, and he's a heroin addict, and he's older than me now, still super famous, and still taking heroin.
Wow.
Imagine the pain inside him. I once went. Boy, you're getting me to talk, man. I don't know.
How long have you had these dreams?
I should have brought a couch in here.
Next time.
No. Well, yeah, we can talk more, but maybe I don't know. So I went. I had gone to a few psychiatrists, and I didn't like what they said and gave me. And so I made an appointment with the most famous psychiatrist in all of Long Island. And it takes something like 6 months to see him, to get an appointment with him. And he cost a gigantic amount of money. But this man, he sat and talked to me for an hour and a half, just listening and listening and listening. And finally he said, I'm not going to give you any medicine. He said, I want you to know you have the most difficult job in the world as a musician, as a composer. You are suffering because of your calling, your career. This is what you're going through. It's not right for me to prescribe anything for you for this. And I was like, whoa. On the one hand, I felt like that's a nice compliment, but I was expecting some magic pill that would,
Yeah.
like, oh, life is wonderful. And, uh, but yeah, he said nothing could be more difficult than the life of a composer. And I thought, well, well, what can you
Yeah,
say? What can you say?
exactly. Yeah, there's no, you can't talk your way out of that. There's no, yeah, like you said, there's no magic pill to, it's situational what you're suffering comes from. It's not something that it's like a chemical imbalance in your brain or anything.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I don't see pink elephants or
Yeah.
hear voices or anything like that. And and yeah, I love my parents, my adopted parents told me a story. I don't know if it's true or not. I've heard various stories, but my father said that, my adopted father said that a nun at the orphanage where I was adopted from said that I had beautiful fingers, and she would allow them to adopt me if they gave me piano lessons or music lessons as soon as possible. So when I was 5 and a half, my dad said, I have a buddy who's a professor of music at Brooklyn University, and would you be willing to try playing piano? And he said, you don't have to stay with it. If you don't like it, just tell me. But I took to it like a duck to water. I really never said to myself, do I like this or not? Never. It just, okay, I'm doing this. I like it.
That's fantastic.
So, and and after 15 years of searching, I found my biological mother.
Wow. What was that like?
Oh, that was incredible.
Yeah.
That was absolutely incredible. Such a beautiful woman. She's passed on,
Hmm.
but they talk about nature versus nurture. Well, my God, did I learn about DNA? Oh, oh,
Lots of
it was
similarities.
more similarities than you could imagine. For example, we discovered that we were in the same New Age conference the same year, in the same classroom, listening to the same lecture, and we
Holy
didn't even,
shit.
yeah. And I asked her, okay, well, who's your favorite composer? Wagner, immediately.
Wow.
Yeah. Um,
That's amazing.
um, and so she says, well, where are we going to meet? And I thought, Lincoln Center. And she said, Lincoln Center. And just one after another, she was more into a kind of new agey spirituality. But she was very, very much into, like, do you remember the Seth
Yeah,
material?
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. She was very much into the Seth books
Hmm.
and that kind of thing.
So that's similar to you, sort of metaphysical.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes,
Amazing.
and being an opera singer, being a dancer, and I earned my living all my life playing piano for dance.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and another very weird, uh, very weird connection. One year after we met, it was Christmas time, and they showered me. My biological mother showered me with gifts, and it was a wonderful Christmas. And then she invited me into the kitchen, and she said, "Larry, here." She gave me a little slip of paper, and she says, "This is your father's name, and this is the last phone number I have for him." And I thought for a year whether or not I should give this to you, but I think you should have it. So, of course, I called him, and in about 2 weeks, we met. Um, and it turns out he married a ballerina. Yeah.
Wow.
So, so incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
everything is intertwined that way.
and he is an author, and he founded a magazine in Washington, D.C. Um, so there's the music and the writing. I never thought of myself as a writer. It was only around, let's see, my first book was published in 95. So around 90, I started writing it only because I had an idea um, of a new magical technique for manifestation, a kind of a visualization, but with more like ceremonial magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, people will like this idea. People will buy it if I write it down. So I just saw myself as a person that was conveying information, like more like an instruction booklet. And immediately New Falcon wanted it and to publish it. And so, but still, I don't, in my bio, I write that I'm an author or a writer, but I don't feel like, oh, I'm an author. I feel like I'm a musician,
Yeah, yeah.
a spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
That's more my identity, I think.
Yeah, yeah. New Falcon, that was a great publishing place. Yeah.
Yes.
Are they still, they're not still around, are they?
Well, they had a complete disaster, absolute disaster. Uh, I don't know what I should say, but the vice president who really ran the show uh, was next in line to be the next head.
Mm-hmm.
And when gee, I forget his name, the great doctor Christopher Hyatt was on his deathbed. Something happened, and he signed the rights away to this other man, not the vice president.
Odd.
So, oh, it's very odd. And so the vice president, of course, was shocked, and he's formed his own, I don't know, it's called Original New Falcon or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the man who got the rights, he and his partner never had run a book business before. And he even ended up, I think, doing time for some crime. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I don't
strange.
want to say too much because
Yeah,
it
sure.
could be libel or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, but so but anyone who's interested in a real juicy story, investigate what happened to New Falcon.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was so proud to be of the lineage of Robert Anton Wilson.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God! One day I was playing piano for dancers. I worked at Hofstra University for 23 years,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was kind of a down day, and I was cheering myself up by thinking I had just heard the phrase, um, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
I think that's maybe a derivative of a Burroughs quote, a William Burroughs quote, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, yeah. Or some, no, maybe his was more like paranoids just know what the real deal is or something like that. I don't know. Some version of that.
Well,
I
I'm
like it.
glad you mentioned Burroughs because I've been thinking I want to read someone like that as Burroughs.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So shortly it was lunchtime. I ate my lunch. I went to the bookstore, and in the bookstore they had a little section where they sold paperback books, general paperback books. And boom, from like 30 feet away, this red book just kind of caught my eye. And so I walked directly to it. I picked it up. I opened it up, and it says, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. And I looked at who, Robert Anton Wilson. I'm going to buy this book.
Was that on New Falcon Press?
Oh,
That would have been interesting, a foreboding.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It was I don't remember the title.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Sure.
He but I did get to meet him. Someone just asked me 2 days ago on Facebook, tell us about him. And so I went to a conference, a weekend kind of seminar that he was doing on some subject. And he came in and he announced that he was not going to talk about the subject. He was going to talk about something else. He talked about James Joyce a great deal. And who has remained, I'll be honest, inscrutable for me. I have not been able to penetrate James Joyce. But anyway, Robert Anton Wilson, I swear, when he looked at me, and I was like in the front seat, I was like a super fan of his. I swear his eyes were completely black. No whites of the eyes, just black.
Interesting.
And yeah, and I actually, to be honest with you, felt fear. I thought, is this man, Robert Anton Wilson, some kind of demon?
Yeah, no shit.
Because I have seen, I said maybe once before, a demon, definitely. So I thought, well, he seemingly superhuman powers in his writing, but it is so strange because I have looked in Google relentlessly, and I've seen photos of him with blue eyes and not a one the way I saw him that day. Yeah.
I wonder why that is. I wonder what was going on.
I wonder if he was showing me an aspect of himself, or I was seeing with my super sensible senses, because I did have an experience once seeing a Sufi sheikh. You're not supposed to look into the eyes of a Sufi sheikh because they're so powerful. And I had the good fortune to meet a very, very powerful sheikh from Istanbul, Turkey, who was visiting New York with some of his dervishes. And and I had read that you're not supposed to look into the eyes of the sheikh. So, of course, being the antinomian that I am, I had to look into his eyes. And it was like suddenly I was looking into the night sky, and everything else around was like a painting.
Wow.
So his eyes were reality, and everything else was artificial, or an illusion maybe. So
were you locked, or did you turn away immediately?
It was sufficient time to say "holy shit" to myself. But yeah, I wanted. I really wanted to see what these guys did, and when they started their ceremony, I was transfixed. I was, I guess, maybe 28 years old, around that age. I was absolutely transfixed by their ceremony. Uh, the first thing is, I think I had been brought up with these eunuchs, these priests, who, I don't know, I actually studied for a while pre-seminary to become a priest. Um, but I liked women too much. So, uh, yeah, when I was 18, the head of the seminary came to my school and said, "You have to make a decision." So I went into the chapel. You know, you have to make a decision. Do you want to
He,
enter the seminary?
uh-huh. But he singled you out?
Well, I was part of this pre-seminary group
Oh, okay.
from the age of 13
Mhm.
to 18, and we regularly had study sessions and retreats,
Mhm.
and I thought I wanted to be a priest. Um, so yeah, that's another thing. Along with talking my girlfriends into having sex, I'm thinking about becoming a priest, and so
Eclectic.
what was that?
Eclectic.
Yeah, thank you very much. Uh, so, so yeah, uh, so he needed a decision from me,
Mhm.
and it was a bit pushy, I think, but he came to my school into the cafeteria, sat down, and said, "You have to make a decision today. It's the day." Um,
You get a day to think about it?
well, I did. I went into the chapel, and I thought, no, I, 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 I want to, I want to be with a woman more than I want to be celibate. And at that time, remember, I was indoctrinated for 12 years of Catholic school, so I didn't really know that there were options, like to be a Presbyterian minister or
Sure.
something like that.
Mhm.
Um, I thought it was either priest or sex. So, um, and no, I was really in love with a woman at the time, and
Uh-huh.
I was actually saving myself for her. But
Wow.
yeah, I was.
Impressive at such a young age.
Thank
Yeah.
you. But yeah, I truly loved her, and God rest her soul. She's passed away,
Mhm.
but she was very special to me. And uh, yes, it
So,
was very powerful. Go
yeah,
ahead,
yeah,
please.
sure,
Go
sure.
quick.
Well, after Steiner sort of blew your mind open, what things after that did you allow in? What was the evolution? Where did you go from there?
Well, you talked about being eclectic. That is that's a good word for me. For a long time, I wanted to have a narrative that I could say in conversations or interviews, uh, that would be like, well, I did this, and it all led directly to this, and but no, my life has been all sorts of uh, like a roller coaster. But well, I quickly found out that there existed a place called Threefold Farms in Spring Valley, New York, a Steiner community.
Hmm. Cool.
So I went up there and started talking to the people, and they were so friendly. And they had the Steiner mystery plays. I went to see them, and I made friends with some of the real greats that were there at the time, and they when they found out that I liked Wagner, one day they actually said to me, "We have some unpublished talks by Steiner about Wagner." and we would like to offer you the opportunity to read them.
Nice.
Brought me into this. They have a beautiful building of the Steiner architecture and a beautiful sunlit room with this beautiful wooden drawers. And they took out these manuscripts. They put them on my lap and they left. They had total confidence in me. And it was so wonderful to actually read Steiner speaking about Wagner. But it was slightly disturbing that he preferred Bruckner over Wagner.
He said that in the essay?
Yeah. Oh, he said that Bruckner was the superior composer, and I like Bruckner very much, but I think he's long-winded. But but anyway, so that was a step right there. I had a girlfriend. We discovered a magical store, a store that sells like magical powders and
Yeah.
I don't know,
Incenses and Crowley books and
yeah, there weren't even books. It was just candles, incenses, sprays, baths, that kind of stuff. So I bought some. Oh yeah, there were some books because I bought a book by someone named Ophiel on the art of creative visualization that I loved, and so that began to open up a chink into the world of magic for me. And so I read a few more books along those lines.
Sorry. No, please go ahead.
Well, no, it's I'm a little vague. I was doing a lot of work playing piano, all sorts of places. Talking about the self-sabotage, I never finished university. I went 2 years. And then I said to myself, I'm making so much damn money playing bars, restaurants, weddings, everything. What do I need a degree for?
To get into debt that way.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I began to work as musical director for regional musical theater companies. And that was fun. And that led me to a professional theater company in Connecticut. And I was the musical director of a dinner theater there for a while. So I thought I had my life pretty much in order. But that's when I met the Sufis, and I delved profoundly into Sufism for many years. But frankly, after about 5 years or so in Sufism, this was a very, very strict, orthodox, Islamic Sufi order. Sufism is a umbrella term. On the one end, you have people that have no connection with any religion whatsoever, and they just call it Sufism, and they sing or dance. And on the other end, you have the most orthodox Muslims that practice every single rule of Islam. And I was kind of at that end.
The Islam end.
Yes. So I was praying 5 times a day and doing the whole Islamic thing and listening to Turkish music, decorating my apartment with all sorts of calligraphy and Turkish rugs and pillows and everything. And one summer I had the opportunity to work at a summer arts camp, a really spectacular place what was it called? Chautauqua. Um, but it was kind of weird because originally Chautauqua was a summer place for Protestant ministers and their families to go to. So I could not relate at all to these people. But our little artist group, we formed our own little ghetto of artists and hung out together. Um, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I fell into a real deep depression because there was no one to talk to. So they had a little newspaper for Chautauqua, and I saw an announcement for a therapist. So I went to I made an appointment with her, and it turned out she just said to me, "I want you to do two things. I want you to, there's a beautiful lake. It's on a beautiful lake. I want you to swim for an hour a day. I want you to compose for 3 hours every day. And will you make me that promise?" And I said, yes. So I did something unique. I sat down at the piano and I said, whatever I play, I am going to write down. I'm not going to correct or change anything. And so I wrote the whole summer, finished the piece. When I got back to New York, I recorded it, sent it off to WNYC FM, and immediately they played it on the radio, National Public Radio.
Oh man,
so
that's great.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But during that time, I began to think, wait a minute. It's a time of like new wave music. I'm a young man. I'm not a Turk living in the 17th century. What the fuck am I doing? I want to live life.
Uh-huh.
I want to enjoy my youth. So I skedaddled completely from the Sufis. I joined a new wave band, and we had lots of fun.
Cool.
But so I don't know. It's so many things began to happen because I'm like omnivorous. If I am attracted to something, I'm attracted to something.
Absolutely.
So, for instance, I was involved in this really interesting form of therapy called radix. Do you know of Wilhelm Reich?
Yes, I was going to mention I had a therapeutic experience with Reichian therapy, but go ahead.
Well, no, I think I've talked enough. Let's.
Hey, you're on the hot seat. You're the guest here.
Yeah.
No,
all right.
You go and then I'll go.
All right, fair enough. Oh, Chris, it's wonderful talking to you, man.
Likewise.
Well, radix it's called like neo-Reichian therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what that means. I've read some of Reich and studied everything. But what was amazing, we did this therapy in a yoga studio, where everything is peaceful and the incense, and we had this big room, and out of this room I hear the most blood-curdling screams and crying and everything, and that was part of the Reichian therapy, the profound breathing until you're just filled with orgone energy. And
yeah.
I learned about sex energy and how that is what, it's the ki, it's the chi, it's the elan vital. And one day I was able to actually see through my skin and see all the muscles of my body.
Wow.
It was incredible. And my therapist was a young woman from Brazil. Um, and she had me screaming my ass off, bawling like a baby. Um, and uh, oh, we had just, and sometimes we had group sessions, and sometimes they were always I had an individual session with her every week. But
how long did you do that therapy?
well, I didn't do it long enough, in my opinion. I did it for about a year. But to be straightforward with you, I found it so painful.
What it brought up?
Well, that's difficult to answer. I would just say that um, the the exercises, the practices that I was doing, I felt such agony, um, and yeah, frequently I was screaming, and yeah, almost all the people that participated are screaming
Sure.
and crying, and so it wasn't like this typical nurturing environment of a therapist office that's nice and cozy, and you have a nice cozy couch or chair to sit in. No, I was sitting there. She had me slamming my like a baby. They teach you to move your head and scream and make until all that baby stuff is like comes out. And well, let me jump back for a second. I didn't mention that in the orphanage, I was abused
By somebody that worked there?
by lots of people, as far
Wow.
as I know. I Part of my search for my birth mother, I was going downtown New York through all the microfiche, looking at all the old newspapers, trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And I come across an article about the orphanage saying a grand scandal has been exposed. None of the nuns are picking up the babies. None of the nuns are feeding the babies in the orphanage. And it was exactly from the time I was there. So I was not being held. I was not being fed. And uh, and then one day I see an article that says that infants that are abused have a lack of serotonin in their brains. So I thought, well, maybe this is a connection. And I've had colitis all my life, IBS, and now they're just saying that they've discovered that there are neurons in the intestines and serotonin receptors there. And I think, interesting.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I think I had a lot of pain from that. And yeah, if I had the opportunity to go back to the Reichian therapy, I would. I would.
Maybe that's where some of that rage has come from. It's stored up from that disconnect that you experienced at such a young age.
Yeah, it's like, when you talk about pre-verbal stuff,
Yeah.
that's tough
Yeah.
because no talk therapy can get at that stuff.
Absolutely.
Dreams, yeah, I think dreams are very helpful. Um, my big kick is the limbic system, um, and the subconscious. I think it's absolutely incredible that scientists, real established scientists, are saying now that we make a decision at least 10 seconds before our subconscious makes the decision, 10 seconds before we're aware of it, that 90 to 95% of what we do and say is controlled by our subconscious. We're like a bunch of drunks walking around the street. I really, and we think we're like so cool, and we know how to speak properly and we're in control.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to think that, I mean, it's scary, but like our whole conversation tonight, it's in a sense between like what I'm seeing and you're seeing in this, but it's between our subconsciouses.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's like, well, I'm reminded of the interview that I heard with you when you were on Aeon Byte, and you talked about, I don't remember whether you said, pardon me, because my memory is
That's
horrible,
okay.
but an experience that you had where you felt like there was an entity that was on your back or something. Can you
Oh,
recount that? Does that speak to that same sort of dynamic, I wonder?
um, well, gee, I'm not sure. I want to say first of all that this was before the Men in Black movies
Hmm.
appeared, because I think that's an important part of this. Um, I At that time I was really into taking mushrooms. I love mushrooms, especially taking them out in nature.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's just so wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but th- it was this time. It was nighttime. I was alone in my room, and I took some mushrooms, and so immediately I saw what looked like an X-ray of my skull, and inside my skull was an alien with gigantic eyes. Come on, like this, not like in Whitley Strieber type alien eyes, but
Hmm.
gigantic circles. And they were facing out the back of my head, looking out the back of my head,
But inside of your skull?
but inside of my skull,
Hmm.
completely kind of not almost fetus like, but crammed inside, let's say crammed inside
Hmm.
my skull. And it spoke to me and it said, "You think you're in control of your life? You're nothing more than a vehicle. You're my method to get around. You think you have a past, memories? That's all been created for you. Uh, we've done all that. Um, you're only my method to get from one place to another."
Jesus.
So that was a total bummer.
Needless to say, and you didn't you call that an archon?
No, because
Okay, okay.
at that time I did not know about
Mhm,
Gnosticism.
mhm.
Um, I had I had no idea what that was. I was scared shitless. Um, but this was at the beginning of the internet, and because I worked for a university, that's the universities had the internet first after the military, and uh, so I was able to get a email account, and I was able to join a group that consisted of professors of religion, of philosophy, and
Mhm.
um, so I thought I was taking a risk, but I decided to write part of my experience to the group.
What group, sort of group was it? Just a generic group or like about
Oh
specific?
no, like
Hmm.
a list serve dedicated to, like I said, religion.
Okay,
Religion. I'm not. I don't think they said the paranormal because
okay.
that's not an academic field,
Sure, sure.
but something like that,
Hmm.
alt religion or something. I don't remember the names back
Gotcha.
then.
Gotcha. Yeah, sure.
Um, and so, but there was one very kind man, and I always had the sense that he was a retired professor. I don't know why. Maybe he wasn't, but I just felt he was like a grandfather. The way he talked to the group, it was always wise, never rancorous, or he never started flame wars, never argued with anyone. And he wrote to me directly, and he said, Laurence, study Gnosticism. He says, what you experienced is completely normal. Have no fear. This has been experienced by many other people, and just go read a book about Gnosticism. So I felt a bit more comfortable after his advice. And at that time, well, I was very much into Wicca. I had been studying Wicca for many years. I had become a neo pagan. I was a Wiccan priest. And so that summer, I was at a neo pagan festival and running around in a loincloth. And there was a booth, some guy selling books. And I saw this one book. It was thick book, like a Bible. Uh, and I started reading it, and I was like, this is profound shit. And but I don't know what it is. And I looked at the cover, and it said Nag Hammadi Library.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to the man, well, I don't have any money on me, but could you please put this aside? And I'm going to run to my tent and get the money. He says, no problem, no problem. I got my money, got the book, and I read the whole Nag Hammadi library. And that began that was around like 90, the year 90. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I began to study Gnosticism. And I began to learn about these beings called archons that that some Gnostic schools say are alien. They are definitely not human. They are mostly artificial, although they do have, yes, they're not,
Like,
I don't know quite, uh, they're like, they're like more like manufactured. They're more like copies.
like
And
a homunculus, like a.
something like that,
Mm-hmm.
yes. An attempt to copy, because it's uh, supposedly there's this being, the
Mm-hmm.
demiurge,
Yes.
Yaldabaoth,
Mm-hmm.
who who tries to copy the work of God, the real ultimate reality,
Mm-hmm.
and so so he creates these archons. They can't do anything original. They don't have an original thought in their mind. They're really Steiner is talking about, what is it, it's the eighth sphere. Um, uh, Steiner really saw what is happening now with the robots, with the artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
He laid it all out so clearly. Go ahead.
Is this where Ahriman, the entity Ahriman, comes in and is sort of trying to trick us all into thinking that what we see is all that there is, like that material world is as far as reality goes?
Yes, yes, that, oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we're at right now, that anything that can kill spirituality, that's fine with Ahriman.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about artificial life forms. Let's build more robots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting that this robot, Sophia, has this name, Sophia, and yet there is this exalted being in the Gnostic universe, cosmology, by the name of Sophia. And she appears in the Bible. And so it's almost like Ahriman is laughing at us by creating this first robot and naming it Sophia. So I began to realize that that we are under attack. That I began to become a little complacent in my life. I think a little complacent in my spirituality. That with meditation and reading nice spiritual books and watching videos, etc., it's fine. It's enough. But Gnosticism has opened my mind up, and then going back to Steiner, I'm beginning to reconnect that there is something really big happening in this world right now, something very important. And our conversation here tonight is one of those steps towards the light, towards freeing ourselves. I mean, you look around, we have everything to numb us, to dull us, to take us away from the authentic.
Yeah. Distractions from experience, direct experience.
That's it.
Yeah.
I personally love the word authentic. I had an LSD experience once where with that same friend from Haiti, as a matter of fact, and we were able to identify in whatever room we went into, that's authentic, that's authentic, and the other stuff is just bullshit. And but there is something to that authenticity, to that direct experience, and oh my God.
Is that what drew you to Gnosticism? Because it's focus upon taking away the thing that gets in between us and the divine?
Not originally. I would say originally. Well, first I read the book. I told you, the Nag Hammadi Library, all the books, but they're very, very difficult, some of them, to understand.
Yeah.
So then I came across a great book by John Lamb Lash called Not in His Image, and I highly recommend this book.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I do not recommend his recent work. He seems to have gone off into a bizarre direction. And I think the less said about that, the better. But
sure.
This first book, Not in His Image, is fantastic. And he really brings to the forefront Sophia. And he shows how, basically how the goddess tradition was bit by bit destroyed by the church and the role of women, and that at one time the goddess Sophia was held in the greatest of esteem, so I thought this was because Wicca is a goddess oriented religion. It was kind of a natural flow to embrace the Gnosticism that John Lamb Lash presented. And then I began to read more books on Gnosticism from various points of view, academic point of view, and others, and I expanded my knowledge. John Lamb Lash he has his unique perspective, but yeah, I am a firm believer in the goddess. So and so I love that very much. Um, and so I think for me, uh, it's like Miguel Connor frequently says that like write your own gospel and live your own myth, or
Yes.
somebody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and that really hit home for me, uh, especially I just turned 65,
Like
and
very recently?
yes,
Oh,
April 5th.
wow. Yeah, happy birthday. My son's birthday is April 6th.
Oh, remarkable! Yeah.
Anyway,
So, yeah, your thoughts turn to, well, what is my legacy? What do I want to accomplish with this life?
sure.
And what do I believe in the final analysis? Asking myself the real tough questions. And I think people should ask themselves these tough questions when they're younger and 20, 30 years old.
Mhm.
Who am I? What am I? Uh, why is anything here? That's the big question. And what are we doing here? Um, where have I been? Where am I going? So, yeah, I've been asking myself these questions, and uh, so and bit by bit, I'm receiving answers, and and trying as best I can to be as authentic as I can. And it's not easy, of course. Um, but uh, but yeah, this is we're here for such a brief amount of time,
Absolutely.
um, and I don't believe in the people that say, well, the atheist point of view, and I think there is a purpose to life,
Mhm.
um, and I love who wrote Doris Lessing. She
Mhm.
wrote a book called Shakasta. She
I've
won
heard
the
of it.
Nobel Prize. Yeah, she wrote actually a whole series, a science fiction series,
Hmm.
and she was deeply involved with a Sufi teacher.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, and she says very openly she does not write easy books to read, and they are not easy to read. I struggled with this one book for maybe half a year. And it wasn't very long, but
Uh-huh.
it wasn't exactly a page turner, but full of wisdom it was.
Sure.
And it showed us in the light that, yes, everybody's life is important, but I don't know. When I was younger, I always thought, well, I'm going to be the next Wagner, or I'm going to be the next something or other. Um, and no, but we each have um, a part in this drama, and we each have a job, and that's the way I see it right now.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and we accept it with humility, and we do our best. And right now, I see my job as being a good father to this young 11-year-old, and a good husband to my wife, and and also to continue composing, writing, um, and looking for guidance.
Fantastic. Well, we're definitely past the amount of time that
Oh, my goodness.
that we set aside to talk. So I feel like I should let you go on with your evening, and but we should definitely continue this conversation.
Well, we should definitely continue it, but the next time you need to speak a lot more. I need, come on, you got to tell me more about yourself.
I absolutely will. I need to be prompted though, because I'm not a person that constantly broadcasts. I'm not saying that you are by any means, but I'm prompting you. But yes, I want it to be a conversation. I want it to be a two-way street.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, because for me, knowing a person, I really want to know the person,
absolutely.
not on this superficial, artificial level. And that's, what is that?
Exactly.
You
It,
know?
it makes me deeply sad and miserable to imagine a life where people just sort of drift in and out and without really getting to know the core of each other, to really know deeply, what motivates somebody and what moves them and what inspires them. And so often it's just a exchange of niceties or politeness and small talk. And I like truly meaningful, multi-dimensional exchanges. So I'm with you there. Absolutely.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
Uh,
Chris, thank you so much. I
yeah.
really appreciate the invitation to talk with you. It's an honor to be on your program.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for agreeing to do it, sort of out of the blue and not, I don't even have a website yet, but
Oh, you will. You will.
I will. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. In the
You're
very near,
fascinating.
within the month. So
Okay.
before we leave, do you want to tell the listeners if you would like where they could find more of your work, or you have a YouTube channel too, right?
Yes, they can find me on YouTube. Just type in Laurence Galian, and you can find lots of stuff about me there. I have a website. It's called Quantum Theurgy, all one word.
Mhm.
Theurgy is Theurgy dot click, CLICK.
Okay.
It's a new what is it, extension?
Hmm.
Click. So quantumtheurgy.click.
Fantastic.
And people can find me there. And I'm on Facebook, and I love to meet new friends. So if you'd like to be my friend, please send me an invite. And
What about your books? Where can I get your books?
books, just go to Amazon and type in Laurence Galian, and you'll see all my books there. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank
Cool.
you very much for asking, Chris.
Oh yeah, of course. And thank you so much for agreeing. And yeah, let's absolutely do this in the near future.
Okay. All right. God bless you, man. Take it
Likewise.
easy.
Yes. Have a good rest of your evening. Tell your family hello.
Oh, thank you. You do the same.
Yes,
Thank
I
you very
will.
much.
All right.
Good night, my friend.
Good night. Take care of yourself.
Okay. Bye bye.
Well, I don't know if it was perfectly obvious during the course of that conversation, but I was enjoying myself considerably. Lawrence is just a stand-up gent. I mean, I just something feels right about him. I knew that when I heard his conversation with Miguel on Aeon Byte, and I knew that I at least, whether it was for the podcast or not, I wanted to talk to this guy because I just wanted to know more. It's hard to dig into someone's past and their life and all of the things that made them what they are today in just this, just the period that one podcast takes. So this is just the first chunk. There's more to come. As I alluded to in the intro, there's going to be another conversation. We already have one that we've set up, and it is going to be about his book that he just recently got translated into English called Alien Parasites, which looks fantastic. I'm reading it right now, and I can't wait to just ask him more about all of that. And we'll delve into Gnosticism too. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's a topic that is going to need a lot of breathing room. So I'm hoping that he's going to be able to set aside a decent chunk of time so that we can really sort of delve deep into all of that. His book, Gnosticism, and everything in between. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And that, I think, will be probably 2 or 3 episodes from now. So yeah, look forward to that. If you would like to support this podcast, please visit www.patreon.com/themeltpodcast. There you can sign up to sort of subscribe, donate, but it comes out of your bank account like monthly. I think you can set up one-time payments too. Truthfully, I'm not sure. I've only helped people out on a monthly basis, but you can do it for as little as $1 a month. And anything above that, anything would be a wonderful help. I want to make this show much bigger than it is right now. And I'm really enjoying doing it, and I hope just to keep the ball rolling. So in any form you can help. If you can't help financially, you can always share this wherever you leave a data trail online. Include me on your data trail. It's good advertising. So yeah, and just spread the word. Soon, as I have stated before, this podcast has sort of been homeless. It's now on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel set up for it, especially until the official website gets done. There's been some speed bumps, but they've been worked out, and it's looking to be mid-July. So at that point, you will also be able to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever it is that you go to for your podcasts. So you can do that there and leave reviews because they help greatly also in the big picture. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, take care.